I am Ada Babineaux, the founder and director of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival. And today we are talking with I like this is out of the website, a visionary cultural leader, an award-winning creative strategist. I really like that.
That's
I
my
really
head.
like that.
That's
I
my
really
head.
like that. That's a cool title.
Keep it coming, Amy.
Working at the intersection between storytelling, social impact, and operational transformation. That is powerful.
I like that. I'll keep it. I'm going to write
Yes.
that down as a note. I'll use that going forward.
Kelvin Phillips, welcome. How are you?
Welcome. I'm doing good. It's been a long day. It's been a long couple weeks. We're in here at StoryCorps. We're in 2026 planning, which is fun, but it also is it's a lot. So happy to be
great.
talking with you.
Y'all are 6 months out. That's great.
We've learned
like that.
We've learned to start as early as possible because we run out of runway by the time November hits and everybody starts getting into holiday mode. So yeah. But all good.
So I want to introduce everybody. Let me start that over again. So Kelvin Phillips is not only an independent filmmaker with his company Bridging
Stories.
I want to say
Bridging Stories.
Bridging Stories, yes. But also he is the director of Brightness In Black, which is under the umbrella of StoryCorps, if everyone is familiar with StoryCorps. So let's start by that. Let's start with that. Tell us a little bit about StoryCorps, because I had the great opportunity to participate in an interview with my mom. And then how Brightness In Black came to be under StoryCorps.
Yeah, sure. StoryCorps came about in, I think it was 2003, somewhere, when the climate of the country was a little wonky, as it sometimes happens, as it's happening now. And it was 2 years after 9/11. And, for all of those who remember, it was a really challenging time, really painful, really difficult, particularly for all of us who were in New York. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. So StoryCorps founder Dave Isay, who's an old school radio guy, he just wanted to create a space for people to just chill and talk to each other. It started with a recording booth, smack dab in Grand Central Station. He got funding for it. And the world famous radio guy, Studs Terkel, actually cut the ribbon. And, it was just a place that people can sign up and they can just have conversations, sit down, have a conversation with a loved one, with a friend, a family member, or whomever. And that was like 20 years ago. And since that time, we've had recording booths in Chicago and Atlanta. I think we have one in LA. We've had recording booths around. That's that business morphed so that we actually started creating kits and going around the country, recording people where they lived, where they were, and, professional recording, almost like if people remember the WPA that came out of the 1930s. It's kind of similar to that. It was an archiving mission to get people's stories, to get as many as possible around, just again, the idea is conversing with people actually does something. It connects us in a way that's beautiful, particularly people that we trust, friends, family, loved ones. And all of these are archived actually in the American Folk Life Center at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And at this point, we have over 700,000 recordings, 700,000 over 22 years at this point, and growing.
Wow.
So it's just been an amazing effort. And it's just, as you said, Ada, you did a recording with your mother. It's a beautiful way to actually do recordings with people who are intergenerational stories. People want to maybe do it with their children or capture their grandparents. And it's just a posterity, a way of creating a posterity moment that's there for your family. I like to joke and say it's there for the aliens 1,000 years from now when they come and say, what was this human species about? And so, they have this archive with millions of stories in there. Let's just listen to this archive and listen to what people are up to.
Let me tell you, let me tell you how important. You mentioned the WPA, right? Because they used to go around and you talk about prosperity. the beauty of this is that my great grandmother was interviewed as part of the WPA. She was a former slave. She was 102 when they documented her. We have that. We have that documentation, and she was in a book. They put it into a book form. And so there's an exhibit now of my great grandmother, Agatha Babineaux.
That is amazing.
With the WPA, so it connects us to her through her oral.
And we have that from now and forever. Now and forever, exactly. Yes. And I can see the way you're talking about it, just how your face lights up. That's the whole point of it.
Because it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. And Dave, I say he's a visionary to think that this is vitally important for those challenging times like during 9/11 and, even now for us to do that, because it's not really for us per se. It's for the fact that we now have records of people, including slaves, former slaves, that are now for us to listen to, and it does something to us to see just how comprehensive and diverse it is in America. All of these stories of not just racial, but stories of people with disabilities. For example, we just did a recording that we animated. I can talk about animation in a minute. It was a Brightness in Black recording that was actually on NPR, on Morning Edition, because some of our longer stories are actually produced down to 2 or 3 minute spot for Morning Edition. So we recorded it on Morning Edition, and then we actually animated it. But it was a story about a daughter and her father who both have vitiligo, and it was just beautifully animated to show that. It had humor in it and all that, but it was a great moment to show that people who could sometimes be stigmatized can find joy and beauty in who they are. So we have a lot of wonderful stories. Out of those 700,000, pretty much every story in there is a wonderful story, because if you told it, it does something to you and the person that you were conversing with. So I'm very blessed to be at StoryCorps. And we do animation, as I said. The animation part is we had a grant with the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, now defunct, that gave us the ability to do animated pieces that were produced down from the longer pieces. Award-winning animation that was really beautiful. We're going to move that forward. We're finding new ways to find streams of revenue to actually keep that going. So StoryCorps is just one of those wonderful gifts to America. And for anyone who's listening out there, if you want to know more about StoryCorps, go to StoryCorps PS. It's StoryCorps.org. So you go to that website, you'll get everything you need to know about what we're up to, much more in detail of what I've told you. But it's a beautiful way to actually think about how you can actually tell your own story. And
give me that again, because I have Brightness in Black, but I want to put that up. What is that one?
StoryCorps, StoryCorps, StoryCorps.org. And that'll give you all the information that I just discussed and more. We actually have a mobile Airstream that drives around the country in parks in different cities where you can invite people. It's really cool because it's like a recording studio inside the Airstream. Those sleek silver sort of looking like little capsules. So we have an Airstream that goes around in parks in different cities, which is actually really cool. So they
came to San Antonio. Yeah.
We're actually because it's Texas, our last stop of this year is actually going to be in the Fort Worth and the Dallas area in late November and December. So if anyone out there is listening to that, check us out, follow us on StoryCorps.org, and you can actually come on out. We're going to be making it a party there, and you can actually record your stories in the Airstream as well. And we also, last but not least, as far as StoryCorps goes, we also have an app. You can go to the App Store, search under StoryCorps, and download the app. And you don't need us. You could actually, the instructions are really easy there. You could actually record your own conversation with whomever you want on the app. You take your own photos, you download it, and it gets into our archive as well. So that's pretty cool as well. So there's all kinds of ways. People have actually used our app to record everyone in their family tree, and just sort of take it upon themselves to do sort of a lo-fi archiving, family archiving project. So that's also another way that, you know, the listeners and you as well, Ada, can actually use our app.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm really excited to be working here. You want to know about Brightness?
I want to move to Brightness in Black, and how Brightness in Black came to be under the auspices of StoryCorps.
Yeah.
Why and how and when?
So Brightness in Black is just over 2 years old. It was the vision of our chief strategy officer and our chief program officer, who's moved on to another position outside of StoryCorps. An idea of how do we get, one thing I will say was important to many of your audiences, StoryCorps is very diverse, but Black and brown folk are underrepresented, have historically been underrepresented, meaning that underrepresenting how much we actually are represented as a population in this country. So one of the things that Brightness in Black is all about is countering that, to give ourselves, and I apologize, I live in downtown Newark, so you're hearing some alarms out there. But it's a way to actually tell stories in Black communities. But it's a little different from StoryCorps in that we have an intentional way that we collect stories. What we want to do is counter the negative narratives, the stereotypes that are oftentimes portrayed about Black folks in the media. For example, Black men are mostly criminals or in prison or on a corner not doing good things, or the family structure in Black communities are broken. I can go on and on and on. And it can be things that are not said in that detail, but are just implied in pretty much the imagery that we see in news. If it bleeds, it leads, in media, in movies, and all of that. So what Brightness in Black is all about is countering that narrative by finding those stories that are not that. And as we know, there are tons and tons. In fact, the majority of our stories and our truths are positive stories, stories of joy, resilience, how we actually reinvent what the family structure is. It doesn't necessarily have to be Ozzie and Harriet and nuclear. We have chosen families. We have LGBT families. We have our family structures and blended families and all of those ways like that. So those are stories that we find. How are we entrepreneurial in our communities? How do we find ways to not only contribute to our communities, but also to monetize what we're doing in a way that can then give back as well? And we certainly have many examples of this. So we go into cities, for example, we're in Philadelphia, in Atlanta at this point. We're thinking about places like Detroit, New Orleans, Oakland, maybe even San Antonio.
How do you choose your cities? How do you choose your cities?
We have we go by demographics of how much of the population is African American. We go by are there any challenges that a narrative change that we actually want to work on countering? You know, for example, places like Detroit, we know that Detroit is a beautifully up and coming place. We hear a lot of great stories come out of Detroit now, but we also know that there's still challenges around things like gentrification and things like that. So that's one of those places that we're interested in hearing the voice of the people there, getting their stories about how it was, for example, is with the elders in the 60s in Detroit, in the 70s, in the 80s, and how it is with the younger folk and how they are affecting change and community building and things like that. So we have sort of a loose sort of rubric that we sort of run through. Another thing I will say as we move into America 250, we're not just targeting specific cities. We actually want to go broad in 2026, where we actually say, look, African Americans were a key group that helped the founding and the building of this country. And we actually want to make sure that our voice is actually heard in America 250 as we celebrate 250 years of independence of this country. So, you know, we will go where the stories are. And we're in planning, as I said to you, Ada, before we got on, we're actually in planning at StoryCorps around how we're actually going to work in not just StoryCorps and our other initiatives, but Brightness in Black as well. So yeah, that's our mission. That's what Brightness in Black is all about. I've been with the company now as program director of Brightness in Black for a year and a half. It's been really exciting, and it's a beautiful mission. So as you mentioned, as a storyteller myself, as a filmmaker, I couldn't ask for a better job. It's not a job for me, it's a mission, and I'm all for it.
Well, I mean, I think that, I mean, my God, that's ideal. I would love to do something like this too, as a documentary filmmaker. Let's talk about it, because you did mention that you were a filmmaker. So I wanted to move to your personal journey as a filmmaker. But before I do that, I wanted to know, can you talk about how Brightness in Black was funded in terms of how this initiative got funded? I wasn't sure if that was public information.
No, it's all good. So we get major funding, our primary funding, I dare say, from Michael Jordan and Nike. Michael, like I'm on first name basis.
Yeah,
Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan has a Black community commitment that came out of the tragedy of George Floyd, and he actually working with Nike. He actually. I'm not going to say the money, but it's a lot of money that Nike and he and his family's organization put toward this Black community commitment, where he funds organizations, including Brightness in Black, to basically you have to win the award. And in our case, we pitched that we're making narrative change by going in with the StoryCorps model, going in Black communities, finding these stories that, as I said, are stories of joy, resilience, entrepreneurial aspiration, families, and how beautiful our families are, how beautiful we are. And, this is what we're doing. They gave us funding. Hearthland Foundation also gave us funding as well. Hearthland Foundation is Steven Spielberg and Kate Capshaw's foundation as well. They funded other parts of StoryCorps, but they also gave us some money as well. And then we also got some funding from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So yeah, we've gotten funding. And,
oh my God.
Yeah, they've been.
I'm just glad you all don't have any government funding right now, because that would be cut because of the diversity, because of the Blackness attached to it. It would be cut right now if it was government funded.
I know.
So I mean, you never know what like funders like Michael Jordan. Like, I had no idea that he was doing something like this with his foundation.
I say it, and he, I probably shouldn't have, but the truth of the matter is, Michael Jordan is a beautiful human being that does not want the limelight with that. But it's like, you wouldn't know that, but you don't have to know that. There are plenty of people, on his level and not on his level, who are giving back and giving, and they don't want any, it's not, they don't want any recognition about that. They're doing it because it's the thing to do.
Yeah.
So, I should plug our website as well, brightnessinblack.org. So all one word, brightnessinblack.org. If you go there, you'll get more information. You'll see our beautiful website, that's really colorful and branded in our look and feel, and you can get more information there. And I invite your audience to sign up, not only for Brightness in Black, sign up for our newsletter. There's a prompt on our website to sign up where you'll get more information, but also for StoryCorps as well. Just sign up and you'll get information for what we're doing, all the things that are happening in both StoryCorps as well as Brightness in Black.
I mean, and for something like finding my grandmother after all these years, not knowing, something like this is so important, because it connects you to a family member that you may, that may not even be born yet. I mean, your kid may not even be born yet, but you'll have your great grandmother, your mother, or whatever archive. That's a good point.
And I will say similar to that. I did a lo-fi sort of StoryCorps archiving, because my mother, I would go home in South Jersey. My mother was like the matriarch of Thanksgiving, where she would, cook these huge meals and all that. So I would always arrive before my siblings and cousins and all that the night before. And that was sort of our routine where I would turn on my digital recorder and then we just talk. She would tell me her story of growing up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and just, it was just a really great thing. So I have hours of that, her voice. She's passed, but I have that. That would be in StoryCorps. If I would have had access to a StoryCorps back then, we could have done all that in StoryCorps. So instead of turning on a recorder and doing that, I invite your audience to, you can do these same things with our app. Or you can just set up a recording virtually, which I didn't mention. We also do virtual recordings where we have a facilitator signing on like Ada and I are doing now. We'll help you all through it. Or, depending on where you are, we can actually come to the field with our facilitator and field recording and do it the old
That's what
school
we did. That's
way.
what we did. We did a virtual one with someone coming on and directing us. It was wonderful. Me and my mommy, who's 91 now, so it's a blessing. It's a blessing to have
very
that.
much, very much. Have you done one with your daughter?
I haven't done one with my daughter, but I was like you with your mother. I mean, I would always take a recorder and those little VHS cameras and get my grandmother. But what I ended up doing years later after I graduated from Howard, I took Shawande from Howard with me, Milton Henderson. We went down to Louisiana one weekend and we recorded my grandmother that weekend. So when I went to get my master's degree, I took that footage that was 3/4 inch, mind you, transferred it over to technology nowadays.
This big.
Edited that. That was my thesis film project, the film that I did on my grandparents from that period. And so that is priceless. I have that.
I miss that. I miss that analog time where 3/4 inch.
Really? That stuff was bulky. It was bulky and heavy and too much.
There's something about it though that's so authentic and real. The film I'm working on now, I know we're going to talk about some of that. The film that I'll probably show some snippets of it. At San Antonio Black Film Festival is it's just montage of all of the photos that I had of my kid. It's not just, but a big part of it is montage of all these, when I had my 35 millimeter camera from when they were infants all the way to, when they were pre-teens. I have hundreds and hundreds of photographs with them. And I was like, what do I do with this stuff? So I just had it all digitized. And then I've created a film ruminating on Black boys and what happens, the innocence of being a young Black boy and a young Black teen, and how that innocence is lost when you become a Black man in this society. So, but
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it had me thinking about all of this stuff, this recordings that we do, that's analog, that's not in a digital space, that is not in the world of large language models. It doesn't exist. It only exists in, closets and things like that. I think there's something beautiful about that stuff too.
It is. And that's one of the things that I've always done throughout the years. When my daughter graduated, I did a video on her graduating and put a story montage of stuff. So those things are important to hold on to and to have. Let's talk about that creative process. Like how did you get started on the path as just being a film creator or someone interested in film? Was that something when you were a child you were interested in? Was it accidental? You fell into it? Like, what was your story?
Yeah, I've always been artistic. I used to actually with my mom. My mother was very artistic too. She tinkled on the piano. She was a avid reader. So we actually had, if you go to the living room where I grew up, there was a wall of bookshelves with books and things that my mother, they were mostly my mom's, including a big Bible. And then we would watch TV. We would watch things like musicals from like the 40s and 50s, West Side Story, Cole Porter musicals and things like that. So all of that was something that was super, super interesting to me. And I organically got from that and got from her the idea of being a storyteller, of ingesting storytelling. I actually thought, Ada, that I was going to be a performer because when I was in middle school and high school, I was in choirs and on the stage. We had a show in high school. It was called the musical Showstoppers, and it took a lot of musicals of the day and did like these reviews of them. And I was actually pretty good, So I actually, funny story, when I got accepted to Howard, I didn't get accepted into the film program. I got accepted just accepted liberal arts because I didn't know. You know, my father had just passed when I was in 11th grade. I knew I wanted to go to school. I had my English teacher who was Black was like, you should go to HBCU. I was like, what's an HBCU? She's like, so I learned that because at the time I was in a high school that was predominantly white, and my father was in the military. And I remember my guidance counselor saying, oh, you should go in the military like your father. And I told my teacher, Miss Taylor, that she was like, "You're not going to the military. You're too smart for that. There's nothing wrong with the military. But you don't need to enlist. You should go to college." You know. So she was like, "You should go to an HBCU." Did my research, Howard University. So I got in Howard, and I was thinking I was going to audition in the fine arts program, but I would have to do a liberal arts. The first year, I would have to wait for sophomore year to transfer to School of Fine Arts. So I said, well, I'll do communications because that's this TV and all the stuff that I remember growing up with my mom. And then I met people like Alonzo Crawford and Haile Garima. And I just, I had Haile as a you know, I was in one of his classes, and it's Haile Garima. And, you know, I learned, at his feet, and he became a father figure. As I said, my father had died when I was 11th grade, so I didn't have a father figure, and he doesn't know this. He probably doesn't even remember me, to be honest. I know he's going to be down there.
Well, so you're going to see him at SABIFF when you come.
He was a huge component of me deciding to be in film, because I discovered with him in his process of take something from like Native Son, for example, and write a short script from it. It was very intentional of Black stories, and he would show his own work, that he did, Ashes and Ember and things like that. And Charles Burnett would run through, and it was just crazy like that, right? It was just that time at Howard, and I got touched by that. I got inspired, and I realized and discovered that I actually was a pretty good writer. So I focused on writing screenplays. We had the other assignments that we had to do, the shorts and all that. I actually did this short. It was one of the scenes from Native Son, and it did really well. It was shot on VHS, black and white. One of my best friends, Craig Wallace, who's doing very well, still in DC.
Oh, Craig, I remember him. A wonderful actor.
Amazing Shakespearean actor down there. He's always working and nonstop. And he was in it, as well as Wendy Raquel Robinson was in it as well.
Wow.
Both of them. He was bigger, and Wendy was what's the woman's name that he ended up? I don't want to spoil her Native Son, but she played that part. And we shot in our house. We had a house at the time. So it was a really cool short film. And I was just hugely inspired at Howard University. Left there and went on to NYU to focus on screenwriting, dramatic writing in the school of the film school, Tisch School of the Arts, where I got an MFA in screenwriting. I remember Haile Garima was like, you don't need to do that. You need to just work on Sankofa with me. At the time, he was in pre-production.
Really?
Yeah, and he was like, you should just, you don't need that. What's that?
Wait a minute. Back it up. I didn't know that, because I was the one who went to work on Sankofa with him. Like,
no, he was like getting up to it. He was like
after college. Like,
yeah,
wow,
totally.
I didn't know that. Wow.
He was basically like, you don't need an MFA. You don't need that. You need to just start working. And he's not wrong. But I had in my mind that I wanted an MFA, but that's a whole nother story. So, but my foundation at Howard of screenwriting and my understanding that Black stories and telling our stories and telling our truth is really vitally important. And one of the things I have to also say that Haile did is he introduced me to Jessie Maple Patton. And Jessie Maple Patton, who, she was the first Black union camera woman, and to be in a union.
Was she part of the LA Rebellion filmmakers? Was she part of that?
She may have been on there, but she and Leroy Patton, they both out in Harlem. But they gave me my first gig. They hired me first as a PA on a film, a feature they did called Twice as Nice with these twin. I forgot the sister's name. They were twin This is pre-WNBA, but they were
Yeah.
twin college basketball players. So she wrote a screenplay around them, and I was boom
Wow.
operator in PA. But then she hired me to write a feature screenplay. She was like, "Oh, you're at NYU, and I have this screenplay idea." So, and I wrote it. So it was my first gig as a writer from them. She passed away a couple years ago, but she's a legend. And big ups to both her and also to Leroy Patton. So it was a wonderful time in the early 90s of filmmaking in New York, and just telling our truth, telling our stories, and independent filmmaking. And then everything even that happened in California around, things like Martin and the Cosby Show, and just, we were just doing our thing. And I decided I wanted to be an independent filmmaker. I worked on Harlem Nights. I had opportunity to stay out in LA. I didn't really want to do that. I didn't like it out there. I just wanted to do what I was doing and tell stories that are based on my childhood, based on what I know in life and all of that. And I feel really blessed to have done that. And that's who I am as a filmmaker. I've gotten grants and funding for it. I've done documentaries, I've done shorts. So that's the story of myself as a filmmaker.
No, I'm trying to remember how I even met you. I wonder if you were even in my script writing class, if it would highly.
Probably one of the classes.
I don't remember how we met. I don't remember.
Oh, there were three film director majors. It was myself, David Jacobs, and Gary Denny.
Yeah. Yes.
It was weird. We were the only three. I may be wrong here, but I think we were the only film directing.
Right, because I was broadcast production. I wasn't film.
And there were TV people. So it was all, we were mixing classes, obviously, because we had to, and more than three people had to be in classes. But I think so. It could have been that. You were always around going to school of C.
I was always working. I was always working at WHMM. I was always interning, doing, because it was so much to do. I don't know how people can just go to college and just not do nothing. It was so much to get involved in. And so many influences.
It was a beautiful time. And I look forward to coming down there. I hope Holly remembers me. It would be a shame.
I think he does have a memory like a hawk. That's for sure. Yeah. He does.
Hey, I remember eating Ethiopian food at the house,
with having Ethiopian.
Great time.
That was I mean, because after I left Howard, he had got a grant. I ended up working in his basement and just learning. Talking about guerrilla filmmaking 101. I learned everything: casting, coordinating, location scouting. I mean, it was just a lot. It was a lot to learn, be immersed in. So when you were in New York, what made you move to LA? Because you went from New York and then you moved to LA for a while.
9/11. So basically I came up to New York right after I graduated from Howard, did grad school, moved out to Fort Greene, which was like,
Brooklyn,
and all that. And, but I was doing a lot. I was making films. I was kind of like a gun for hire for script doctoring, writing for people and blah, blah, blah. And all the while working. And 9/11 happened, and it was a hard place to be. You could smell it in the air, what happened. And I was actually working in Lower Manhattan at the time, so it was really funky down there. And it just felt like a time to try LA, to say, let me go out to LA. I had an opportunity because a friend of mine who was working at Rough Nation Pictures. Rough Nation Pictures came out of Rough Nation Records. And, they had a production deal out there, and he wanted to hire me to write a couple screenplays. And it was an opportunity to go out there and to do that, because I knew I at least had a gig for a while. So, my first year and a half out there, I was writing, and I ended up writing 2 screenplays for that company, and him co-writing, because he actually worked on them as well. Neither of them made it to the big screen, but it was a wonderful process. And, moved out there with my girlfriend, who became my wife. And, that got me out there. LA is LA, it's driving culture and all of that. I ended up working at a financial services company, my side gig, if you was always like graphics and desktop publishing, and then that morphed into managing those folks and sort of project managing. So they brought me in to sort of build a marketing division in this financial services company. The owner of that company, he actually decided he didn't want to be in LA anymore and decided he wanted to move headquarters to Austin, Texas. It was an opportunity then to go to an interesting place. We went out and kicked the tires of Austin. Kind of liked it. I've never imagined, this is no shade on Austin. I mean, on Texas, I know you there, but I was like, Texas? I ain't moving to Texas. Well, you know, this is a dope city. And back then, this is like 2005, 2006. It was really Austin weird. It didn't have all the tech stuff that it has now. So it had this authenticity about it. Richard Linklater filmmaker, had an independent film thing, Slacker, and all that stuff going on out there. So I was like, okay, we can do this. Our kids were still young, so it was like, we can actually go out here, and it's great education. So, you know, we were there. I was out there for about 8-9 years. Got an opportunity to, I was out there for a minute, and got an opportunity to work in advertising back here at Uniworld Group, the advertising agency back in Brooklyn. You know, multicultural advertising agency, as their head of integrated production. So that was a great opportunity in 2015. And that got me back to the East Coast. And that's kind of where I am now. So I had this, you know, working advertising and project management, all that, all the while continuing to make films, short films here and there, write scripts, and, you know, get grants, get funding, and all that. So it was a weird sort of morphing of my left brain and my right brain, but it serves me well, so it's all good.
Yeah, wonderful path. I mean, your independent production company. Can you tell us a little bit about Bridging Stories, how the name came to be, and when you started it? Because you were still working in advertising, and then you started a production company. Is that the way it went?
So you know, my partner, we were married at the time. We're no longer married, but we still have a partnership. We founded Brightness. If I'm confusing it with Brightness, we founded Bridging Stories back when we were in Austin, and it came about from the work we were doing, the film work we were doing. We wanted a way to actually formalize what we were doing. She's a phenomenal marketing expert. So I was the creation part of Bridging Stories. She's the marketing arm of it, and that was a company, and it was basically just finding ways to bridge gaps. Gaps between people. It's funny to even say this because it's going to sound so StoryCorps like, but bridging gaps between people who are not talking to each other, but finding a way to bridge the way we actually tell our stories or tell stories. You know, the way we dream, the way we actually communicate, you know, so the stories is a loose way of finding ways to bridge stories that are personal stories, but that to make them sort of larger for a larger audience. You know, so that's what we do. The film that, you know, I did, you know, recently 2 years ago was a musical about a man who's unhoused and loses his hearing. It's, you know, on the streets of, I think you may have seen it, Ada. It's on the streets of New York City. So
no, you actually submitted that to SABIFF, and it was a big contender, and then you pulled it, and I was just like, we were like, huh?
Yeah.
But,
well, you know,
that was a really wonderful film. Very well.
Yeah, you know what? We stopped our festival run because it was time, and we were spending a lot of dollars traveling, things like that. And one of the things that I always promise myself is, if I can't be there in person, then I'm not going to show it. So it wasn't just SABIFF that we did. It was we just stopped it because we were, you know, it was hugely successful run.
Yes,
we
nice
won two Best Film Awards and some honorable mentions. So we did great on it. But that was an example of bridging stories, right? This idea that who are these people on our streets who are unhoused? We don't know them, and everyone has a story. So in that case, it was a story of what you find out about this gentleman who was unhoused. So that's always a very loose way that we try to bridge stories, if you will.
Yeah, very well done. Are there any upcoming personal projects you can tell us about through your production company, Bridging Stories?
Yeah,
Anything
so
going on
there's
there?
the one that I mentioned briefly on this call of Black Boys Being Beautiful that kind of takes photos of my children when they were babies, literally when they were days old, all the way up to, when they're uh, pre-teens. It's sort of like a 3-act movement. It's a poem under music that
Mhm.
my son who lives in Austin, Justice, he actually composed the music. He's a fabulous composer in Austin, Texas. And then my oldest son, my namesake, actually co-wrote the poem with me. So it's a labor of love with them. I don't want to spoil it, but it's 3 movements. The first movement when they're young, what happens when young Black boys become young men, and it's not pretty, some of the things that happen. And then it's joyous how it ends at affirmation, who you are as a Black man and how you're still relevant and beautiful. So that film, we've just got invited to a world premiere that it hasn't been announced yet, so
Wow.
I can't mention it, but very excited about that. That'll be later on this year. And yeah, so we're just beginning like a festival run on that one. But I'm always writing, Ada. I actually have a really cool project that I've had probably since I was at Howard about Hannibal and
Mm.
Hannibal the General. And I have
Mhm.
a long-standing project. I've done all this reading and geeking out over the story of Hannibal Barca and Carthage
Mm.
versus Rome and Scipio Africanus. So I've distilled it down. I'm really into brevity now and really into kind of, instead of going big, going small. So this is more of like a play. It's just
Mhm.
movie that'll be between 2 people, two warriors, if you will, who are now at the end of their warriorship in their elder time, having a conversation. So I have a draft of that I'm working on that I'm really excited about as well. And so I'm always working on things. Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing I am not, and that's a disciplined writer. You have that writing discipline, which is really, really good. I don't even know how you at this point in time have time to write because your schedule is so busy with Brightness in Black. That's amazing.
I know I probably shouldn't be saying it because they're like, well, how do you do our work? But it's a lot.
No,
It's a
it's,
lot
it's,
of early
it's a
mornings.
heavy balance. It's a heavy balance. So I
I
commend
get up
you
at
for
5, 6 every morning.
that. Mhm.
Like I
That's
go by what Walter
discipline.
Mosley says. Walter Mosley's like, literally, you should be writing every day of your life, and I try to adhere to that. Even if it's bad writing, just write it. Even if it's writing a
Mhm.
sentence, just write it. So I just try
Do
to.
you do you use do you write with a paper and tablet, or are you writing on the computer when you
I
do?
write now on computer. I used to write. I
Okay.
have tons of great stories. I have tons of journals that I've had back even when I was at Howard, NYU, and all that. Just packs of those. I usually, as a way of process, at the end of every year, I would buy the next year journal, and every
Mhm.
day I would write in that journal. So I have a lot of that. But I finally transitioned that probably like 20 years ago to typing as
Yeah.
well. And now I actually talk a lot. I do a lot of voice memos and then I transcribe them
Huh.
because like, when I'm walking out in nature and things like that, if an idea comes to me, I'll turn on my voice phone and I just talk the idea in as well. That's
That is a great idea because now they have platforms that can transcribe it for you, and you
Yeah, I
don't have
just
to.
automatically
Oh my
transcribe it.
God, that's a great
So it's
idea.
super, super easy, and I do a lot of that now too. So yeah, it's all kinds of ways to kind of get what's in your head and in your heart down on collect on
Well,
paper, if you will.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now even more so than now, more than ever, you can do that. I mean, now you don't need a camera. You can use your phone to document. I mean, there's so many things that have progressed with technology that this generation should be taking more advantage of
Yeah.
to
And
document.
again, to tie this back to StoryCorps and Brightness in Black, it is vital that we tell our
Mhm.
stories and tell our truths, even if
Yes,
we just
yes.
it's not, everything doesn't have to make it to Hollywood. Everything doesn't have to go viral on
Thank
screen.
you.
But with AI and large language models, it's scraping everything that's out in the web and in the internet. So if our
Mhm.
stories are not part of that, our stories are not going to be told accurately. So if we get our own stories out there on the internet, narrative stories, documentaries, or whatever, they become part of the collective that is actually becoming, the now, the present, and in the future of who we are as a nation and as a world. So I think it's really important. And it's actually really strong work for us to tell our stories. And even if the listener is not a filmmaker or poet or what have you, we all have an individual stories. We all have a story to tell. And some of these stories, so many times with StoryCorps and Brightness in Black, people get in the booth and they're like, well, I don't really have anything to say. And then we have prompts, like, for example, Brightness in Black, of like, tell us about an amazing meal that you had with your family. And that becomes like this beautiful story that they didn't even know was important. But it's like, and then a recipe comes out of that, a recipe that's been handed down from generation to generation. Oh yeah, because a lot of times our stories, we think they're not all that. And it becomes like, wow, you have a recipe that was handed down for like 100 years? You think that's nothing to tell? That's a beautiful story. It's a story that I want to hear about. It's empowering. So,
every story, every person's story has relevance. They just have to see that. They have to recognize that. Yeah. I mean, we can't wait for you to come. We're excited that you're teaching a class to our student matinee, reframing the image. I'm looking forward to that. And you will see Hailey, you will see Charles, Rikiana. We bringing DC up in the house in San Antonio.
All right. So, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward. I love San Antonio. When I lived in Austin, we would go down there and the riverfront. We would, my kids, and we would go down and hang out down there. Or halfway down there, we saw at New Braunfels. They love Schlitterbahn.
Oh yeah, Riverwalk. It's a lot here. But thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. I keep elevating the brightness that we have, and we look forward to you coming. Thanks again for joining us.
No, thanks, Ada. Thanks for the opportunity, and good catching up with you. And I can't wait to see you when I'm there in a couple of weeks.
Me too. Take care.